Welcome back, everyone. I am absolutely pumped for today's explainer because we're completely demystifying the care of one of the most popular, colorful, and just straight-up hardworking cleaners in the freshwater aquarium hobby. We're talking about the ultimate mystery snail care blueprint. Whether you're a total beginner to aquariums or you're just looking to add a fantastic cleanup crew to your existing setup, this explainer is designed to give you exactly what you need to know. No fluff, just the facts, laid out so you can get right to it. So let's jump right in. Okay, so let's actually start with a really fun piece of aquarium history. Have you ever wondered why they're even called mystery snails to begin with? Well, picture this. Back in the day, early aquarium keepers would walk up to their tanks and suddenly find dozens of tiny baby snails just crawling all over the glass. But the crazy part? There were absolutely no visible eggs anywhere in the tank. It genuinely seemed like magic. They just appeared literally out of nowhere. So what was the big magic trick? It's actually a super simple explanation. The eggs were there all along. They were just hiding right up above the waterline where nobody thought to look. That sneaky, brilliant little quirk gave these snails their name, and it's just stuck ever since. It makes them completely unique in the hobby, and, as you'll see a little later on, it also makes them incredibly easy to manage. To get you set up perfectly, here is our blueprint for this explainer. We're going to cover meeting the snail, the perfect tank setup, what they eat, safe tank mates, breeding and babies, and finally, health and common mistakes. All right, let's get into it.
Section 1. Meet the mystery snail. These peaceful, hardworking little guys originate all the way from South America. They grow to a very manageable 2 inches in size and typically live for about 1 to 3 years in an aquarium.
And you know, one of the best things about them is that they come in an incredible variety of colors. Gold is definitely the most common. It's a great starter, but you can also find them in blue, ivory, magenta, black, brown, and even a really rare jade color. But here is the real kicker. Their overall look is actually a combination of both their shell color and their body color. So a gold shell with a dark body looks completely different from a gold shell with a yellow body. It's kind of like a mix and match puzzle. So keep an eye out for that unique combo when you're picking yours out.
Section 2, the perfect tank setup. Getting the foundation right all starts with space. You absolutely need a 5-gallon minimum for one single snail, or a 10-gallon tank if you're keeping a small group. But listen, pay close attention here, because this next detail is the absolute most important part of their entire setup. It is completely non-negotiable. You must leave a 2 to 4 inch air gap between the water surface and the tank lid. Why? Well, mystery snails actually breathe air. They use this really specialized snorkel-like tube called a siphon to reach up and grab a breath. Plus, remember that whole name origin story? They absolutely need that dry space above the water to lay their eggs. If you fill your tank to the very brim, your snails literally cannot breathe properly, and they certainly cannot breed.
Now, as for their ideal water parameters, you can see the sweet spots right here. They like temperatures between 68 and 82 degrees Fahrenheit, and they definitely prefer slightly hard water. But I want to draw your focus to the single most critical metric on this list. Ammonia and nitrite absolutely must be at 0. 0. Mystery snails are incredibly sensitive to poor water quality. If ammonia spikes, your snails are going to suffer fast. So always use a good sponge filter, which is perfectly safe for their little tentacles, by the way, to keep these parameters in check.
So while pristine water quality is a must, there is one specific element in that water that is quite literally vital for life, and that is calcium. Think about it. Mystery snails are literally building their houses on their backs, and they use calcium carbonate to do it. If your tap water is too soft and lacks calcium, their shells will suffer severe erosion. They'll turn thin, pitted, or even get riddled with holes. It's a bad situation. The easiest fix? Just drop a plain cuttlebone right into the tank. It dissolves slowly over time and gives them all the free calcium they could ever need.
Now, if calcium is their best friend, we really have to talk about their absolute worst enemy, copper. This is a lethal danger. You should never ever use copper-based fish medications or liquid plant fertilizers in a mystery snail tank. Copper is just highly toxic to all invertebrates. Even tiny trace amounts in a general fish medication can wipe out your entire snail population almost instantly. Seriously, always read the labels on your bottles before dumping anything into the water. All right, moving on to Section 3. What do they eat? Fueling the cleanup crew. Honestly, their constant, round-the-clock grazing is exactly why aquarists love them so much. They're little underwater vacuums. Now, while they will naturally clean up regular tank algae and biofilm, you really should supplement their diet. Sinking algae wafers are great, or you can toss in blanched veggies like zucchini and spinach. They go crazy for those. Calcium-enriched foods are also a massive bonus for shell health. But here is the golden rule when it comes to feeding. Only give them small amounts and make sure you remove any uneaten food within 24 hours. Because rotting food in the tank, that spikes that deadly ammonia we just talked about. Section 4. Safe tank mates. Friends versus foes. Look, mystery snails are 100% peaceful. They don't bother anyone. But because of that, they can easily become an absolute buffet for the wrong type of fish. So who are the friends? Great safe companions include tetras, coreodoras, guppies, and dwarf shrimp. They'll all get along just fine. On the flip side, your dangerous predators include cichlids, goldfish, pufferfish, and loaches. Pufferfish, for example, will literally hunt snails specifically to file down their own teeth. So the simple rule of thumb for beginners is this: if a fish has a mouth big enough to fit the snail's body, it is a massive risk. Just stick to peaceful community fish and you'll be perfectly fine.
Section 5. Breeding and babies. If you keep mystery snails, breeding is probably going to happen. Now, figuring out if they're a boy or a girl from the outside is actually pretty tricky. You kind of have to look inside the shell opening for a specific male structure. But here is the wild part. Female mystery snails can store sperm for months, literally months. That means a female who made it at the pet store way before you even bought her can produce fertile egg clutches for weeks, all by herself in your tank. How crazy is that?
And when she finally does lay those eggs, prepare yourself for this staggering number. A single clutch laid right up there above the waterline can contain anywhere from 50 to over 200 individual eggs. They look like this weird pinkish oval cluster just stuck to the glass or the lid. If you leave them at room temperature, those 200 tiny, fully formed baby snails are going to hatch and drop right down into your water in just 2 to 4 weeks. Okay, I know what you're thinking. 200 snails? No way. Don't panic. Unlike certain pest snails that can just reproduce asexually all on their own, mystery snails absolutely need both a male and a female to create those fertilized eggs. This makes population control super simple. Step 1. If you see an egg clutch, just scrape it off the lid before it hatches and throw it away. No hatch, no babies. Step 2. Only keep one snail in your tank. Problem solved. Or Step 3. Keep only one sex if you know how to identify them. It's highly manageable. You just have to pay attention to that air gap area we talked about. Section 6. Our final section. Health and common mistakes. Let's look at how to avoid the biggest beginner pitfalls and really decode your snail's behavior so you know exactly what they're telling you. All right, let's demystify some of these behaviors. If you see your snail just floating at the top of the tank, it's usually totally harmless. They actually trap air bubbles on purpose just to float around and travel. However, if a snail stays tightly retracted inside its shell for more than a day and doesn't respond at all to a gentle touch, that is a huge red flag. Your immediate next step has to be testing your water for ammonia with a liquid test kit. And look, if you're ever unsure if a floating or completely retracted snail has passed away, you're going to have to use the nose test. Trust me, a dead snail has a very strong, unmistakable odor. You will know. But before we wrap up, I want to read this quote directly from our source material, because it honestly should give you immense confidence. It says, "The good news? Mystery snails are hardy animals. Regular 25% weekly water changes, stable parameters, and adequate calcium will prevent the vast majority of health issues." And it's so true. If you just master the basic foundations we've covered today, you are absolutely going to have a happy, thriving cleanup crew. So, we've covered the whole shebang. We talked about their sneaky egg-laying habits, that totally non-negotiable air gap, their massive appetites, and exactly how to keep their shells strong. So what does this all mean for you? Well, are you ready to solve the mystery and evaluate your own tank's readiness for these fascinating little cleaners? Take a good look at your current setup. Maybe grab a cuttlebone and get ready to enjoy one of the most entertaining and genuinely helpful animals in the freshwater hobby. Thanks so much for hanging out and learning with me today, and keep exploring,